When we think of Buddhism, it's easy to imagine aspects of peacefulness, perhaps even the achievement of a higher spiritual awareness and the individual progression towards a life of blissful enlightenment. Through the means of meditation and discipline that are so often associated and encouraged within Buddhism, it's easy to see its appeal, given its serene nature and the tranquility it produces. However, the Sohei of feudal Japan were anything but a tranquil bunch. They were in essence warrior monks, who came onto the scene in the Middle Ages as different sects of Buddhism. They had different beliefs from traditional Buddhism, perhaps a whole string of different ideas and notions that changed how they viewed the religion, and more importantly, changed how they behaved. For the most part, the Sohei weren't shy about taking up arms against one another, if only to prove that their version of their beliefs was correct. But the Sohei have a far more prominent legacy in feudal Japan than just arguments amongst themselves. They would become so fierce that they would establish themselves as a major political force in Japan, and were revered not just because of their spiritual authority, or because of their prowess in battle, but because they could supposedly bring upon curses on any who irked them. This is true in the case of the mysterious Yamabushi, who were a group of wandering monks actively searching for supernatural powers. Unlike the Sohei though, the Yamabushi usually kept to themselves, and only rarely participated in battles alongside samurai and other Sohei. While the Yamabushi are mostly a mystery to us, some accounts detail that their acquirement of powers came from the belief that if one spent enough time with nature, otherworldly senses and powers could be achieved. The words of 12th century Emperor Go-Shirakawa sum up the Sohei's presence quite perfectly, where he states, "There are three things that are beyond my control: the rapids on the Kamo River, the dice at gambling, and the monks of the mountain." To think that this was an emperor openly admitting that he did not have control over a sect of people within his own domain, and that he compares them to such non-corporeal means, shows us just how much of a formidable force they must have been. While not necessarily as bold as the samurai, they did adopt the same armors for battle, but would sometimes hide this by wearing large dark jackets to wear over the armor, as well as long skirts. For the most part though, these warrior monks were identifiable by a white head cowl that they wore over their shaved heads, sometimes wrapped around their face so that only their eyes were exposed. It was not uncommon for the Sohei to wear helmets either. The monks would lean towards the naginata when it came to weaponry, a long pole with a brutal bit of curved blade on the end, allowing them to attain the reaches that a traditional sword would not have. It was not unheard of though for these monks to wield katanas, as well as daggers and bows. It entirely appears to be whichever the individual monk favoured. Another part of their arsenal, although this is debatable, was that the warrior monks would carry with them a portable shrine into battle. You might think it was simply used for prayer, but some historians agree that the shrine was actually used as a weapon, at least as a psychological weapon anyway, for its presence on the battlefield would be viewed upon as an omen by the enemy, particularly if they were not monks themselves. They would view the shrine as a holy item, and thus it would be blasphemous to shed blood in front of it. It would seed doubt into their mind, and could ultimately drain them of their convictions in the battlefield. For the most part, the battles between the Sohei and their enemies was never secular, but always political. The Sohei don't appear to have ever fought in the name of religion, but more so because they had been influenced, whether financially or otherwise, by samurai lords to fight for their cause. It was no secret that many samurai lords loathed the Sohei, branding them as nothing more than mercenaries, and sometimes even as evil monks. But it cannot be denied that having the highly proficient warrior monks in your corner could certainly tip the tide of the battle in your favour, and it was this sort of thinking that saw many samurai warlords negotiate with the Sohei and try to get them on side. Oda Nobunaga, the great unifier of Japan, and perhaps one of the most recognised generals during the Sengoku era, absolutely detested the Sohei. This might have been because the Asai and Asakura clans, who Nobunaga was at odds with at the time, had gotten to the Sohei first, convinced them to join their cause, and became a major thorn in Nobunaga's side. By now, the reputation of the monks would have no doubt been a great cause for concern for Nobunaga. Given the ruthlessness and the cunning of Nobunaga, there's no reason not to believe that he himself may have curried the favour of the monks had they been in his presence first. Regardless, they had chosen their side, and unfortunately for the unifier, it was not his. But it appears that Nobunaga's prowess on the battlefield, or at least the prowess of his general Toyotomi Hideyoshi, would see the Sohei defeated, and thus retreated to the mountains. They were done for, defeated, and probably had suffered enough casualties that they weren't much of a threat to Nobunaga anymore. Or were they? We see Nobunaga launch a horrifying campaign against the monks in 1571, where he absolutely obliterates their temple complex in the mountains, massacres every man, woman and child, whether monk or not, until the entire mountains ran red with blood. Reports from the battle indicate that the screams of the monks rang out through the mountains, echoing for miles as they were brutally murdered by the Nobunaga force. All in all, a total of 20,000 people were purged during this engagement, though it is unknown how many of them were actually warriors.